Noise. I'm always like, get it in my butt, get it in my butt. Fast, fast, fast.
Traveling places, I ain't seen you in ages, but I hope you come back to me. My mind's running wild with you far away. I still think of you 100 times a day.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's been a good month and a half of camera sobriety, not buying any new cameras, not even looking. But then I saw this on Instagram and I had to get it. This is the Fuji Instax Wide 300 modified with a Schneider 100mm f5.6 Symmar lens. The operation of this camera is a little different, as you can imagine, because now you can manually set your shutter speed, aperture, cock the shutter, and press this hammer to fire off a photo or use a shutter release cable. The stock shutter button is only used to activate the motor to eject the photo after you use the shutter on the lens. If you're not familiar with Schneider glass, that's completely fine because they're mostly found on large format cameras, and this is kind of like the creme de la creme of glass quality. So imagine taking a Ferrari engine and putting it in a Toyota, and that is what you get in this camera, because the Instax Wide 300 was already a great, reliable camera for instant film experience, and now you have manual settings and you get to control everything now, so it's just like a supercharged experience. My boy Arnell back home, he is really good with instant cameras, and some of the shots that he took to this day are some of my favorite instant film photos of all time. So let's head on over to Manhattan Beach, and I invited my friend Caleb from Bad Flashes. You could subscribe to his YouTube channel right here, and I want to see how this camera would perform in the wild, and Caleb brought his Polaroid camera so we could compare and contrast the instant film brands.
So how many instant film cameras do you own?
Like 5.
Oh shoot,
I have too many.
You own 5. Wow, look at that. What a bro, dude.
I looked into your eyes and saw starlight bold bright colors. Yeah, when I'm down, when I'm dry, no one else. I would choose you over and over. I would choose you over and over.
Totally. I wonder because it is so bright out here if I do like a -1 line, whatever that means.
After all we've been through, there's no one else for me but you. I would choose you over and over again, again. You are the real thing, a novel before the film, all the nuance, every letter.
Okay, so let's see. Now that we're complete shade,
Oh, true.
the sun didn't nuke it right away. See if it turns out weird casted color.
This is like the difficult part. Like if I'm like to hand someone this camera, they have to be like measuring ever so slightly. I think that's like about 6.5 feet from me. Yeah, like not everybody's gonna be into doing this.
So let's talk about the pros of this camera, starting with the manual control. The benefits are pretty obvious for people like me who want that kind of stuff, but I think the main benefit of that actually is it kind of solves the finickiness of the Instax line from Fujifilm, because I know of a lot of people who own the wide version and the little tiny toy one, and the thing that they struggle with the most is the exposure settings, because sometimes when you're outside you don't know if you want to use flash or if you shouldn't, and even in my best judgment with all the knowledge that I have, it's kind of inconsistent with the Instax film or the way that the cameras kind of read the light. And then sometimes you come out with a very blown out image or a very ugly underexposed image. This problem doesn't really happen when you're using that camera indoors, because you could just use flash and then everything just looks beautiful. So that inconsistency is pretty much solved on this modified version. And let's talk about the aperture control, because now we have f5.6 on 100mm lens. The bokeh is amazing. I swear to God, like photographers talk about bokeh like car people talk about horsepower. And what I love most about the Instax Wide, coming from a film photography background, is the fact that this camera is giving us a 6x10 medium format positive. So that 100mm focal length is kind of like a 35mm, but with with beautiful medium format bokeh, baby. And you may have noticed that the flash unit is now blacked out, and that's because for obvious reasons, with the lens being a manual thing, the electronics can't sync when this shutter fires, but you can actually plug in your flash into the sync port right over here to your strobe or whatever, and you could sync it to every single shutter speed because this is a leaf shutter, just like the RZ, Mamiya 7, and the Hasselblads. And for folks like me, that is a huge thing. That is money to me.
Must have had it pretty good. Must have had it pretty good. I want you, boy, just to please me. Don't tell me that you could. Don't tell me that you could. It's beautiful in the way we move, but what's it gotta do when you can't seem to choose? You're beautiful, but we must restrain when your mind is split two ways. That's when they come down, please. Don't touch me, boy, I want you. Not allowed to. You're someone that
So on the factory spec version of this camera, you get a 95mm lens at f14, and you have like two focusing zones, which is like 3 feet to 9.5 feet, and then the second one is like 9.5 feet to infinity. And now in this guy, you get a minimum focusing distance of 2 feet, which in my opinion is a huge improvement. And everything about this Instax is now a legitimate camera for photographers. Well, let me correct myself on that. It's now a camera for big fat nerds like me.
You'll always be my day one. Day zero when I was no one. I'm nothing but myself, you and no one else. Thankful you're my day one. Thankful you're mine. I got lucky finding you. I won't beg the day that I came across you. 'Cause when you're with me, I don't feel
Yeah, that's gonna be a funny one.
not a day goes by that I would not redo. Everybody wants to love.
And done.
It's easy when
Alright, if we're gonna be talking about the pros, which there are many of, we need to talk about the cons. The first of which is that this camera is now hella hard to use for some people. Okay, not like hella hard, but it does take away the ease of use that the Instax line is known for. But now, like when you hand it off to someone, they're gonna be a little bit confused. You're gonna have to teach them how to manual focus, how to measure that, then do the shutter speed, then meter and all that jazz. That's a little bit too complicated, and of course, you can set the settings and then hand it off to someone. But let's be honest, all of us have cameras that we can do that with, and that we don't need to add that difficulty with another camera and passing it on to someone else. It's too much. And even though it was a pro earlier, it still is kind of a con to myself and probably many others, and that's the fact that the built-in flash just doesn't work anymore. I mean, the whole point of having that is to make those instant film photos look kind of party-like, and now that that's gone and that you have to wire it up to another setup, it kind of makes this package a little bit too big, and the Instax Wide 300 is already kind of a big camera to begin with. And let's talk about focusing. There is no rangefinder in this camera, so there is no parallax correction. You don't really know where the image frame lines are inside the viewfinder, so you kind of have to compose in the viewfinder, but then take yourself out of it and kind of look right above the lens to see if everything's lined up. It's kind of confusing, and there can be some missed shots because of the very shallow depth of field that we're given. But if you close up to like f11, maybe f16, that kind of does get alleviated, so that's up to you. So like I said, this is a very nerdy piece of camera equipment for people like me, and in my opinion, it's fixed. But at the same time, it didn't need to be. I just love how Nate from Option 8 just decided one day to take this plastic, fun, instant film camera, smack on the world's best glass, and just make it supercharged, and wow, he's just doing the Lord's work. Plus, he's a teacher, so that makes him cooler for being a teacher and also taking the time out to make a side project like this. But before we head out, I need to thank the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. Squarespace is a beautiful all-in-one website builder that you could use to create an online photography portfolio. It's really easy to pick and choose a template to be your new home for your work. I picked the Avenue template because I've always been a fan of the grid layout, and now there's a new home for my all-time favorite Wyoming photos. Squarespace makes it really convenient to upload and rearrange photos to your choosing with live updates, and if you ever hit a problem, you can contact their 24/7 customer service to get you going again. You can start a free trial today at squarespace.com/ChrisChew. Use my code ChrisChew at checkout for 10% off your first purchase. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Alright, that's all I have for you guys in today's video. Thank you guys for watching so much. Like this video, comment down below about what you think about this modification, and you can message Option Ig. Please go follow him. He also has a photography account as well where he posts up his own personal work. Go ahead, give him the follow. Thank you everyone for watching. I will see you in the next video. Peace.
Be my day one, day zero when I was no one.